The OnePlus Open represent the best of what OnePlus has to offer to date, but it also represents for them the best foldable that they can offer in 2023. We're talking about the fastest RAM, fastest storage, of course, fastest processor for 2023, giving us some of the best experiences when it comes down to gaming on a device of this format. External display, of course, as well as internal display. So without further ado, this is TK and this is my gaming review of the brand new OnePlus Open. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So as I said to you guys at the beginning of this video is that this is the best of what OnePlus has to offer. And what I'm talking about essentially is as far as specifications, before we jump into and start talking about the gaming experiences, we're talking about the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. We're talking also about 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of internal storage, and that's going to be the configuration that I have right now. It has a 6.3-inch 0 to 120 hertz refresh rate display on the outside and a 7.82-inch display that is married on the inside. Same thing with a variable refresh rate. Camera stack information you can have right there, 20, 32, 20 on the inside, 32 on the outside, and then a 48, and 64 on the back. And all of that is running on top with Android 13 with Oxygen OS 13.2 on top. There is no update at this point. Let's go ahead and give it a second. And you can see here, August 5th, security patch update. The games that we're going to talk about, or at least the experience that we're going to talk about of how are these games working on our device. Obviously, we're going to talk about some racing games. I have Need for Speed Most Wanted, one of my favorite ones. We obviously have Undead Horde. We have Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG Mobile, Diablo, and of course, Genshin Impact. And I've been using it, of course, with the Oculus Quest 3, but that's not really a gaming experience. That's more so of a launcher. But let's start talking about the gaming experience on this device. So in front of us is the Geekbench 6 score. I wanted to show you guys this obviously more for reference. I am running it in performance mode, and this is a single core and the multi-core that we get in here. And then the other thing I forgot to mention to you guys when we were talking about specifications is obviously that this is housing a 4,805 milliampere battery, and it is split between the two sides. So you have basically a split of 3295 on one side and 1510 on the other side. But we're able to charge it from 0 to 100 in about 42 minutes with that 67-watt charger that's included in the box. But if we're looking at as far as performance, again, single core, it's pretty high up there. Again, this is the 8 Gen 2, the best of what Qualcomm has to offer us in 2023. And again, obviously, there's going to be other versions of this processor on the market, but at least this is a good reference point for performance on the brand new OnePlus Open. Talking about the gaming experience and what we should be expecting. If you're playing Diablo, or if you're a fan of Diablo, this is going to work absolutely fantastic. The bar on the bottom is primarily sitting there because this is a replay or a screen grab from when I was recording this. And what I like about it is that you're actually able to do screen recording while playing your games. And you're able to see basically the frames per second, the GPU and the CPU in front of us. And Diablo did not disappoint. It was a consistent 59 to 60 frames per second, and it really much did not drop below 55 frames per second. Even at the most, when I was having multiple enemies that I'm fighting, and there was a lot of different elements kind of fighting in front of us, and it's absolutely very nice. The device handled it really good, no heating on it. The performance was very consistent, and the battery lasted quite a bit. And if I want to be able to charge it at the same time, obviously we're able to plug it in. But the battery will last you quite a bit. And the beauty of it is if you like to use this with, let's say, external displays, like something like this, like the Roku glasses that you're able to plug in, because of the video output that we have in here, it becomes very easy for us to be able to play, enjoy it on the big display, and of course, still use the device as the controller since we're doing screen mirroring on a device like this. So again, Diablo, not a problem, 60 frames per second, very consistent and high quality graphics. So now we're going to switch over obviously to Genshin Impact. Now a lot of people like this game, and it is a very popular game. Now I put this configuration as basically the highest settings as far as the performance settings, but I also put it at 60 frames per second because I wanted to see how long can we actually keep the frame rate running at about 60 frames per second, or can it actually handle 60 frames per second for an extended amount of time. Overall, what I'll probably say is this. I got the initial maybe 5 to 10 minutes, 5 minutes or so of gaming. The game actually lasted at about 60 frames per second. You could see it right there. It's running about basically 53 to about 60 frames per second, and it was able to hold its own for quite some time. And as you can see right here, it did actually drop to roughly about 44 frames per second. And this is after when we started engaging with some of the enemies, the environment got a little bit more complicated. The graphics are absolutely beautiful. You could see not a single stutter at all. The device did not get too hot, but the frames per second did drop from 60 frames per second, at least according to the readout that we're getting in here. I would probably say is for extended gameplay, expect it to be around 40 frames per second. It's still higher than the 30 frames per second standard mode that we see. But again, unfortunately, 60 frames per second is not going to be sustainable more than about 5-6 minutes since we start playing. Hopefully in future updates, we're able to get better performance. Again, this is very much the early release of this device, so expect the performance to just get better as time goes on. Now, one of my favorite racing games of all time is, it has to be Need for Speed Most Wanted. And it's not because it's the most graphically intensive. I will say though, at the time this game was launched, this definitely was one of the better games. Now, as you first launch the game and you're setting it up, I just wanted to give you guys a quick experience of how the game played and the graphics and the representation of how the gaming experience is on here. I'm playing games mostly on the internal display, mostly because that we're used to seeing a standard form display run the way we see it on our standard form. If I close this device, that's how it's going to look like. So if you're playing games like this is just going to take it to the next level. It's more of a tablet style experience, but definitely much better. And also to show you guys how the games scale, because we know they work on a 16:9 aspect ratio. So this one looks absolutely fantastic. 60 frames per second running consistently in performance mode, and not that much as far as, you know, draw on the system. Again, it's not one of the AAA titles of 2023, but as a classic game that runs and it has a really nice collection of cars, it is absolutely a lot of fun to be able to play this. And it is an offline based game, which is really nice, especially in nowadays when all the games we're looking at, let's say like online games like Asphalt 9 and so on, are typically considered to be more of online, as you need some type of an internet connection on them. So very nice, very consistent, 60 frames per second. Again, you can play them with the glasses if you want to be able to and enjoy a bigger display, like almost a 120-inch display on the brand new Rockets there. And of course, they go up to 120 frames per second as well. Now, I know you guys have been waiting to talk about the two of my favorite games on this. The biggest thing I'll probably say is, first and foremost, yes, Call of Duty Mobile, 120 frames per second gameplay on the brand new OnePlus Open. This is crazy. This is the internal display, and see, yeah, it does technically fluctuate, but it stayed consistently pretty much over 100 and pretty much hovering around the 120 frames per second. It's absolutely fantastic. It's not going to be the highest quality graphics, but it's still going to be one of the most fluid games that you're able to play, and of course, play for an extended amount of time. Not going to say this is one of my favorite or my best performance when it came to the games, but actually doing pretty decent as far as getting some of those guys and turning undead all of those different characters. The one thing I will probably say is, again, I'm playing it on the internal display. You could definitely play it on the external one. That one also supports 120 frames per second. And if you want to be able to maybe sacrifice a little bit on the frame rate, you can drop down to 90 frames per second and then get a max resolution as far as the graphics. All of the stuff, absolutely great experience. The device did not heat up. The 8 Gen 2 is definitely one of the better processors on the market right now when it manages heat, performance, and extended gameplay, especially when it comes down to games like this. Call of Duty Mobile at 120 frames per second on the OnePlus Open is absolutely fantastic. Again, you want to play them with the display, play them on the glasses, or play them on the display, external display or internal display. You are not going to be disappointed. Great gaming, great experience there. Now, obviously, the last game we're going to talk about is PUBG Mobile. And this, again, one of the other things that I really like about this is supporting actually 90 frames per second gaming on the OnePlus Open at launch. So if you like PUBG Mobile, if you like to be able to play it at some of the best resolutions and best frame rate, this is not going to be disappointing. And again, 90 frames per second on the internal, external display. Really runs very nicely, no stuttering, no issue. And you can of course customize your mapping and the keys and everything like that when you go to a much bigger display. But again, 90 frames per second, it is absolutely refreshing. And I'm really happy to see some of these experiences and of course some of these options that we haven't had before on devices, especially at launch. This is supported, it is built in. If you like to play these games or any games in general, this is going to be the device for you on the external or internal display, because it literally packs in some of the best specifications of the 2023 and some of the best OnePlus experiences that we've seen in the past. And I'm about to get my butt kicked right now once I meet with this guy. I'll let you guys see that real quick. And come on, we're in there. Boom, 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 boom. And there we go. I went down. I didn't die there. We did win the match. But as you saw there, my buddy was able to help me out. So when it comes down to gaming, there's no question that this device is going to be able to handle anything you throw at it. It has literally the latest, best specifications that we have on the market. And I know it sounds like I'm basically just hyping it up. No, this is true performance. You saw the videos. I was recording content on this device and recording it for the PUBG Mobile match that I was showing you guys at the end. That was about a 25-minute match. You guys know that PUBG Mobile matches are not quick. They're not simple. They take a long time. And we did end up winning that match. Our team was actually doing really good. And I think at the end, I was able to get in about 7 hits. At the end of the day, probably what I'll say is this. Genshin Impact, although was not able to run at 60 frames per second, still ran consistently over 30 frames per second. And I think this is something that we've seen from OnePlus in the past. What they do is they try to balance the experience between gaming and performance without allowing the device to overheat. Keep in mind, most of the time when you're using that phone, you're not running at 100% performance mode on the Gen 2. You're running on a throttled experience. You have to jump into the settings under the battery section to turn on performance mode. The gaming experience changes that because the launcher, that little launcher that we have on the side, allows us to actually punch it up to the level where it runs in performance mode. So those are things you want to keep in mind. I'm not disappointed in the way it ran. I actually like the way it runs. Overall, I think it was a smooth experience, no stuttering, no issues with the gameplay, and no graphic drop in the quality of the graphics that we're looking at. All the other games that I showed you guys there are obviously going to be depending on the quality of the game and the way it runs. What I'm really, really stoked though is 90 frames per second on PUBG and 120 frames per second on Call of Duty Mobile at launch on the brand new OnePlus Open, and of course the OPPO N3. So there's not going to be that much of a difference. My understanding is for the most part they're the same phone, just depending on the market that you're in, they're just going to be called slightly different, either the N3 or the OnePlus Open. But let me know in the comments below, what other games do you guys like to be able to test out on this device? And are you as excited as I am that literally we finally got the epitome of success of performance that OnePlus has been promising us for as far as the foldable since MWC early this year. And it is finally a reality, and it is a device that looks so nice and it is so thin. And of course fits in a pocket, and of course does all that phone stuff that we like to do, like, you know, watching movies and playing games. Thank you very much for the support. I'll see you in the next video.